Welcome to the Undercovers Podcast. I'm Ben, along with Paul and Connor, and tonight we have a very interesting, I'd say fun episode. I mean, most of our episodes, I would hope, are somewhat interesting, but we got some very nice, just overall football topics. Then um, some Bills topics, and then obviously the star of the show is going to be our quarterback rankings, and
Uh-oh.
that's probably going to be a hot topic. And once we actually post the graphics for these, I'm sure they're going to be well received on the Twitter sphere. But without
Oh
further
boy.
ado, guys, let's get into this show tonight. Big night in sports. Honestly, you got the College World Series final as well as the Stanley Cup final, and we get to see if another South Florida team chokes away a 3-game lead.
I'm not even a Panthers fan, but if they lose and make history in this way, they're going to sink the entire state of Florida into the ocean.
They're just going to continue to be a joke. I
Yep.
mean, look, obviously this is not a hockey show, but like me as a follower of hockey, in just the last few years of Florida Panthers hockey is just they can't sell a ticket and be good, and relocation rumors, and then there's blowing a 3-0 series lead in your third Stanley Cup and trying to win your first one in NHL history.
Don't put
Right.
that into existence. The game ain't even started yet.
Yeah. Well, Panthers, you had your shot, but maybe it wasn't the best idea to have Mike McDaniel beating the drum. Maybe you should have brought a coach who's actually won a championship before. But anyways,
So,
let's get
you
into
think
our
Eric
football
Spoelstra then,
topics.
huh?
Yeah.
Why not? Where was Eric Spoelstra? I mean, it's not like the Heat are playing right now. Sorry, Connor, but
Shut up.
I mean, they are.
I'm hurt.
So, speaking of championships, the Kansas City Chiefs are on their quest for the first ever three-peat in the history of the National Football League. And as we get into this topic, who do you guys view as their biggest threat to this three-peat? And let's actually add a caveat to this. It
Uh-oh.
cannot be the Bills, but we
Damn it.
can make arguments as to why it can be the Bills, because I believe the Bills, I mean, if you look outside of a team that I'll say some of us might name, so I'm not going to explicitly name them, but the
Mhm.
Bills have been one of the Chiefs' tougher tests in the playoffs, and you can make an argument. And basically, all of those playoff games are just one or two plays away from winning those games. And we know football, a lot of it is based on luck and where the ball bounces. It truly is a game of inches. So maybe with the right conditions, I mean, it does set up. Now they are down Stephon Diggs, but it's not like he's really done anything versus the Chiefs in these pivotal games. So I'm interested to hear who you guys have. So Paul, who do you view besides the Bills as the Chiefs' biggest threat to their three-peat?
I'm going to go outside of the two other, you could say the most other obvious ones that are the Bengals and the Ravens. I want to say the Houston Texans. I
Okay.
think what the Houston Texans done this offseason, yes, they added Stephon Diggs, but like what they've done with their entire offseason, they're building a roster around CJ Stroud, which is great for the Houston Texans. And after Stroud, after having a wonderful rookie season, just adding more weapons to the running back room, to the wide receiver room. They added some great pieces to the defense. I mean, Chiefs Texans, it seems like should be a marquee matchup, like on a
For
Sunday
sure.
night.
I mean, even
Almost every year.
the tight end room they added to, right? They got CJ's college tight end in Cade Stover, so there could be some chemistry there. Connor, who is it for you
Well,
besides the Dolphins? I'm kidding.
okay. What do you think Tua could actually win a game like that? Come on.
When it matters, no.
Not when it
Definitely
matters.
not.
But anyway, seeing as we already said it's not the Bills, you're gonna have to make me dig deeper into this just because the Bills is the only correct answer, other than the Cincinnati Bengals, who have given the Kansas City Chiefs some
A
trouble in the
really
past.
good shot.
What?
Now, I mean, I guess if you maybe want to look outside the box, in that scope, you think of teams like the Bills and the Bengals, and it's predicated probably on defense in these important playoff games. Now, Pittsburgh has the defense and the coach. The question is, what is that offense going to look like with Arthur Smith, Russell Wilson, and
It ain't going to be Pittsburgh, I promise.
I'm just kind of discussing the focus of that team. I mean, quite frankly, right now they got a gaping hole in what the wide receiver room at the wide receiver 2 position after losing Deontay Johnson. Now, I'll just drop this.
Mr. Hands for Mr. Concrete Hands. Yeah,
believe
right.
It was Ryan Clark, if I'm not mistaken, who reported on NFL Live today that disgruntled San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers officially met today. So something is going on in the BA camp. Now, whether there's going to be extension or not, we'll see. But even if they do sign an extension, that does open the door for probably Debo to leave. Now, that would be an interesting piece in that Steelers offense if you had Debo to go with the run game, Freiermuth, Roman Wilson, and then, of course, might actually have something if you could add Debo to the Steelers offense. That's kind of, it seems like, or it's just another weapon for Arthur Smith to waste. I guess we'll see.
Ayuk is a Steeler, not Debo. Debo will stay in
Well,
San Fran.
that was in the caveat if Ayuk gets the deal and they move Debo.
Oh, well, okay, then yeah, maybe Debo Samuel is
because obviously you have the perfect parallels because we all know who Brandon Ayuk's twin is, so he kind of needs to be a Steeler at this point. But I guess if you want to look to the NFC side, there are a couple teams that kind of catch my eye. You actually look at a couple teams last year who beat. Now I know it's a regular season, but they did match up well when they faced each other. It was both Detroit and Green Bay. So say Kansas City makes it back there in their quest for three-peat. Well, maybe it's finally there's an NFC team besides the Bucs that can answer the call and actually beat Mahomes in the big game. Maybe it's the Lions or the Packers. I mean, I actually am big fans of what both those teams did in this offseason. And I think the Lions could really go to another level from what we saw last year. So that's going to be interesting.
Well, let's not put it into the universe that the Chiefs are going to be in the Super Bowl again to where we have to rely on an NFC team to
let's just get to our next topic. So we have perfect amount of time to argue endlessly about our quarterbacks later.
Of course. But let me also just say one thing as well. You know what would actually be truly poetic other than the Cincinnati Bengals or Buffalo Bills being the ones to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs? You know how hilarious it would genuinely be if the Los Angeles Chargers actually made the playoffs and beat Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game?
Oh my God. And it's like Lad McConkey has like the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, then
that's a guy who
never
Kansas
hear
City
the end of it.
Took Worthy over when Worthy was supposed to be so much better. And it's funny because I actually had McConkey higher on my board than Worthy. I actually wasn't as impressed with the pure speed. And if you actually look at Worthy's deep ball metrics, he's actually not a great deep ball threat, which is funny because he's supposed to be the fastest receiver in football. So we'll see how Casey utilizes him.
Chiefs wanted their Tyreek Hill replacement before Miami could draft him, and there you have it.
Well, Miami had the chance to draft him, and they ended up psyching everyone out.
Chop Robinson. But anyway, let's move on to the second topic because we've got a lot of fun stuff to chat about tonight. What is that second topic anyway? Cook it up for us.
Oh, I like this.
The next quick take on our slate tonight is if the Dolphins don't re-sign Tua, will they be better or worse without him?
All right, this one's mine. This one is absolutely all mine, and I am going to start off by saying right now that they are going to absolutely crater, and we are going to enjoy every last minute of it as Bills fans. Let me ask both of you right now, out of every quarterback that's on the market right now, is there a single quarterback better than Tua Tagovailoa?
Well, it is gonna be what, June 25th or whatever coming up.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
we're deep in June. Like there's really never like quality quarterbacks. I mean, you do have Tannehill, who actually did go to an AFC Championship game, something that Tua has not done yet. But anyways, I guess if you want to actually look at maybe potential options next season, let's just go into a hypothetical world where they don't resign Tua. Dak Prescott is a free agent.
Haha.
Like Dak
Prescott.
Prescott can
Okay.
actually throw deep. That would actually be interesting if Dak went. Now, obviously, there would be more turnovers because I mean, obviously he's got a better arm, so he can put it up there to begin with, for, 50-50. Tua doesn't really go for those. He's just more of just throw to the open guy and I'll let my playmakers make it work. But that would be interesting if, like, just think of it. I mean, he's put up numbers with CeeDee Lamb, with Amari Cooper. I mean, last year you can make an argument that he should have been MVP if, maybe he doesn't have that bad performance against Buffalo or lose to Miami, but Dak had a very good year last year if you actually dive in and look at the numbers. Yes,
Yeah.
because playoff record isn't great, but he
No, it
still
isn't.
has won more playoff games than the entire Dolphins franchise in the last 2
Haha.
decades, which is still pathetic, but
It's
honestly, the
hilariously pathetic.
Dolphins and Cowboys are very similar in a lot of ways, which is funny. And it would honestly be kind of fitting if Dak is the next quarterback of the Dolphins. That would absolutely be bonkers to think about. But
How
I
much they
mean,
gonna
they've
pay a
been
guy
trying
like
to
that?
shop Tua since he's
60
basically
million.
landed in Miami.
But here's the thing. If you're Stephen Ross and Chris Greer, there's a significantly less injury risk with paying a guy like Dak that money. And Dak actually has the arm strength to capitalize with those speedy wide receivers. Like Tyreek and Waddle could absolutely cook with a quarterback with even a slightly better arm than Tua.
What are you gonna gloss over the fact that Dak Prescott missed practically an entire season due to injury in 2020?
That was 1 year. I mean, besides that, he's pretty much been healthy throughout his career. Like he's been a very consistent player since 2016 when he's been in the league. I mean, he's really only had one poor season, which was last year when yes, it was another injury, but that was kind of a freak thing with a thumb injury. And yes, he threw a lot of picks, but I mean, he missed 5 games. So obviously there's going to be rust when you come back. I mean, I don't know if it would work or how Dak would look in McDaniel's offense, but it would kind of just be an interesting hypothetical Dak Prescott to
It,
Miami. Like, I don't know if it's a massive upgrade or if it's any upgrade, but it may not be a huge downgrade. Like, it might just be the same thing. Like, they're still a 10-win team and lose in the first round.
and consistently get owned by the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
That works.
Dak is 0-2 versus the Bills, so he can continue that in Miami or in Dallas, and Tua can continue being Josh Allen's son as well. So,
Oh man,
I
that's
mean,
glorious.
the Dolphins been shopping Tua since basically they drafted him. I mean, they lost a first round pick because they wanted to tamper with Tom Brady. And so it's like, and then they wanted to go out and get Deshaun Watson, during that whole scandal stuff. Would they be better? I mean, without Tua, they possibly could. I mean, it just depends who they're upgrading him with.
right.
If
And
they
you
go
don't,
out and grab.
you
Yeah,
don't know,
and
you don't know if that guy, has the same accuracy or timing
Mhm.
for that Miami offense. I think that's why the offense is so successful, is because of that quick release and how he's able. Say what you want about Tua's arm strength, it sucks, but he's a very accurate quarterback between the numbers, if not the most accurate quarterback between the numbers. Like
that's accurate.
the problem is he's a one read quarterback or mostly a 2-read quarterback, which he's good at. But once you're playing these big games and against defenses like Buffalo and Kansas City, who actually know how to defend Tua, which is basically fled the middle of the field and force him to beat you outside the numbers, which unfortunately Tua's never. I mean, he's shown that he can throw outside the numbers, but he's never been able to consistently hit guys, especially in the late situations when defenses know he has to throw it outside the numbers. I mean, we saw it in Miami with Taylor Rapp to end the season last year.
And that's a wrap on the division for the Buffalo Bills. One of the most legendary calls I've heard in my life, even looking back on it now. But if we're gonna just talk about Tua, well, we have a whole discussion of quarterbacks in the league planned for later tonight.
Yeah, we could definitely get more into Tua later, which is funny because the quarterback who I mentioned may or may not be my top 10. But let's do this trivia real quick before we get to the Bills discussion.
As we all know, the cover athlete for this year's Madden is Christian McCaffrey. And well-deserving achievement for him to be on the cover of Madden, which comes out next month.
Mm-hmm.
So the trivia question goes on along with Madden. Who was the last active running back to be on the cover of Madden?
I know the answer, and I know there's actually two answers technically, because as the official cover model, it was Peyton Hillis, but technically Adrian Peterson was a cover model on a special edition of Madden 25, I think. So technically it was Adrian Peterson.
Yeah,
but Peyton Hillis was as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it's Adrian Peterson. He appeared on the cover of 25, the Madden game that literally nobody knows about because it had like no fanfare.
And now we have another Madden 25 with a running back on the cover. How fitting.
Yeah.
and hey, at least it's a great choice for a running back on the cover. Let's be real.
So what's the correct answer?
The correct answer is Peyton Hill.
See, I knew it was Peyton Hillis, but technically it also is AP. So let's get into
there's two answers.
Our Bills topics, which we won't have 30 minutes to talk about, by the way. So we got to make it quick and concise. So let's get into topic number 1.
Yes, indeed. Let's do it.
First topic of the night, which is ironically one of the bigger topics talked around in Bills circles, is Greg Rousseau. He's coming up on a 5th-year option next season, and it seems like he just needs to. In order for him to get an extension, he needs to play a little bit more consistently. So I want to ask you guys: is it too early for the Bills to extend Greg Rousseau?
No, not at all. Greg Rousseau, I believe, still isn't even 25 years of age yet. He's still growing into his body or his frame, which is very rare to find for edge defenders with his athletic ability. And I mean, just in general, rare to find NFL edge defenders or players in general who are 6'7" with an 83-inch wingspan. So he's a freak, one of the better run defending edges in the league, great at setting the edge. And if you look at his advanced analytics, he's, I think number 9 overall in edge setting or run defense for edges. And his sack numbers, they haven't really been gaudy or flashy yet, but he's shown that he's developing with his pass rush moves. And at times he's shown some really good pass rushing moves. Just last year and the year before, he had some bad luck, kind of almost similar to Oliver in a way. Oliver's first couple of years were kind of plagued with injuries, so we could never really see a healthy Oliver until this past season, which really paid off. So I'm kind of in the same belief that we're going to get what we got out of Oliver in Groot once we pay him. Even if we don't pay him, I still think he's in line for a big season, but I just think you pay him now to get the price down a little bit. But even if he doesn't get over 10 sacks, 8 or 9 sacks, and great edge presence, tipping passes, run defense. Like you look at a Calais Campbell, he's had a fantastic career as a very good defensive end, and in 16 seasons, he only has 2 double-digit sack seasons. So I'm not saying Groot doesn't need to get sacks, but if he doesn't put up 15 or 20 sacks, it's not the end of the world. I still think he'll be around the 8 to 10 to 12, but I still think he has the potential for more and the upside for that. But you definitely have to keep a guy with his athletic profile and build, and he can play inside and outside, so he's a versatile guy. But I think you definitely have to keep him.
Oh, for sure. Like we just got our money back, earlier in the month from the Tre'Davious White contract coming off the books. So now we've got, I believe, 11 million in cap space now, according to Sal. So
Nearly 12.
I am of the opinion that we should genuinely save this money and let it roll over into next year. But I could be persuaded if we were going to make an extension offer to Greg Rousseau. I feel like that's the only way I would actively tell Brandon Beane to spend this money that we have right now.
Spend it, Brandon.
Don't spend it like haphazardly. Like if you're gonna spend it,
Extend Groot.
Yes, extend Greg Rousseau, like period, point blank. That's the only reason I think that you should be spending that money that you have now if you're going to at all. However, I'm actually much rather of the opinion that the Bills should not spend this money at all. Let it roll over into 2025 when they're going to have even more cap come off the books and make a huge swing for a premier talent in the NFL at a position of need. So that's my opinion on that. But if we are going to extend Greg Rousseau, I would not complain a single ounce about it.
I don't disagree. I think we should extend Greg Rousseau. I think, to all of Ben's points, I mean, his athletic build, he's super athletic. I don't think it's going to happen this season. I think it's going to happen next season. I just need to see a little bit more consistency because he went from 8 sacks in 2022, and he only had 5 last season. And I think he's an 8 to 10 sack guy. He could potentially get more. And if he gets more sacks, that means he's just more of a threat on our defensive line. So I just need to see just a little bit more consistency before I can say, okay, let's extend him this season. I say extend him next season, and we'll move on and have him continue to be a Buffalo Bill.
Mm-hmm. I'm all for it. But while we're at it, if Beane wants to give Teron Johnson another extension before the current extension even is over with, I would not
gave him one.
Give him another one. I don't care.
All right.
I am Teron
Let's
Johnson's
get into our
biggest
next
fan.
topic. We got to
give him another one.
We got to get back to reality here.
No, give him another extension. I don't care. I will live in my own world if it involves.
All right. We already know who Connor is going to talk about for the next topic too. So.
Duh.
All right. So the next thing on our Bills slate today is who is a Bills player on the Bills roster? Who is a player on the Bills roster who is currently not being talked enough about?
And why is it Teron Johnson?
I'm not even. I'm about to say Teron Johnson, like 100%. I don't care.
I knew you were, and you're the one like talking about him, like leading the brigade for his propaganda, which is good. But I guess he is being talked about in this instance. So
I will have
someone who's not being talked about enough is. I mean, we just talked about Rousseau, so it can't be Rousseau either.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Benford, but I think Benford's been getting a lot of positive.
No, he hasn't.
I know he hasn't, but he's been getting some positive reviews, and I've been high on Benford pretty much almost since his rookie year, pretty much. So I don't really know if I should say Benford because the real ball knowers know, and Benford has been like that.
Well,
so I'll go with someone else. I'll let you decide first because I really want to get a great pick here for this person we're not talking about enough.
Oh my, okay. So if you're going to leave it up to me, then allow me to educate the casual ball knowing world on Khalil Shakir, the absolutely outstanding wide receiver who has like no recognition because he barely got any time last season. But now that he's stepping into a larger role, he is going to be very much talked about by everybody as one of the best receivers in the league. Now, I don't know exactly how high the ceiling could possibly be for Khalil Shakir, but I guess we're going to have to see how Joe Brady orchestrates the playbook, because I still don't think Khalil Shakir will get all of the targets. I think that that's still going to be Dalton Kincaid, but I am still looking very forward to watching Khalil Shakir make everybody go, wow, why did we not know who that guy was before this season started? So that's that on that. Obviously, I just was about to say Teron Johnson, but that's really not uh, fair enough, because as we know, Teron Johnson did get an all-pro nod. So it's not like people aren't talking about Teron Johnson. Everybody knows exactly who Teron Johnson is. I mean, it'd be awesome if more people talked about Teron Johnson being, the absolutely incredible nickel cornerback that he is. But no, I'm sticking with Khalil Shakir. And my next two would definitely be Terrell Bernard and Christian Benford. Then after both of them, we'll just put in Teron Johnson. And then you know what? Just for the vibes alone, because we aren't talking about the GOAT quarterback, Josh Allen. We're not talking about him enough. We need to talk more about Josh Allen. I said what I said.
Always good to talk more Josh Allen,
You can never get
it's
enough
always
Josh
best.
Allen.
Never enough. I actually never actually sat down and thought about this for a second today. I know it was one of the objectives that I needed to accomplish, but I never got to it. But I'm just looking through the Bills roster. I'm like, there's several players you could name out, but I guess the one that the two that are sticking out to me the most are on the defensive side of the ball.
Okay, good.
And
So you don't have my pick, which I just thought of, by the way. So I think it's a pretty good pick, and I'm glad that I'll be the only one who picks this guy.
So the two that I've been that are sticking out to me the most is Kyer Elam and DeMar Hamlin. I think
Two
both
of Connor's favorite players.
Hey! I never said a thing about DeMar Hamlin. Okay, it was only Kyer Elam, but even then, I'm slowly turning into a Kyer Elam truther. All right,
I've always been one, so credit to me.
I am turning into one. It is a
He
slow
doesn't
process.
get enough credit for what he's been doing in the postseason.
Sure.
He doesn't get enough, he doesn't get enough snaps in the regular season, but it seems like every time he gets the snaps in the postseason, he makes a big play. Like you go to the Steelers game, he had that DPI, then he followed it up with the interception in the end zone. You go to the year prior against Miami, he gets a critical interception of Skylar Thompson that helped the Bills propel themselves over. A 3-point win over us against a Miami Dolphins team. So I think Kyer Elam is coming into a prove it year, and I think he's going to prove it. He has the snaps in the postseason. Translate your success in the postseason to a really, really solid 2024 NFL season, and I think he could be your lockdown CB3, because obviously Douglas and Benford are always going to be ahead of you. So if he can solidify the CB role 3, I think the Bills could potentially have the best 3 cornerbacks in the NFL after this season.
That's a hot take, and I like it. So mine's a little more of a underappreciated, under the radar player, but I think it's fitting. And last year he didn't play much, but when he came in, it was one of the biggest moments of the season, and he did not disappoint. And I think there's something with this player where right now he's a backup, but if Brown doesn't resign, or Dawkins goes down, I think we're in very good hands with Ryan Vandemark. And when
Ooh.
Dawkins went down for that series in Miami, he really went in and the offense, performed and had a touchdown drive without a hitch. I don't think Allen even got sacked with Vandemark in. So I think Vandemark is a very under the radar player who not many people are really talking about, quite frankly, but that's part of the reason I'm so confident in this Bills O-line, because even if, God forbid, Dawkins or Brown goes down, you got a great piece in Vandemark to come in and, protect the quarterback. Now, I think this is a good time to transition to our quarterback discussion. So how are we going to be doing this? Are we going to do it descending or other way? Are we going to do one
10
at a
through
time?
7.
Okay.
Let's do 10 through 7, 6 through 4, and 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
All right. So are we each going to give 10 and just do
Yeah,
it like that? Okay.
Let's do everyone give 10 through 7, and then we'll go that way.
I guess we probably all kind of have a different method of how we calculated this, because there's a couple ways you can do it. You can look at their overall careers, and then obviously you can base it off last year, or you can just kind of maybe do a mix. I'm doing it based off who would I take in 2024 on my team. So yes, you could say some of these players may have had better seasons last year. One's may be more talented, but just based on the current season, this is who I would take. So number 10, and definitely a newcomer to this list, but he showed out very well in his debut season. I'm going with Jordan Love. I'm a very big Jordan Love believer. I think the sky's the limit for this guy. And just watching him, it's almost scary how much he reminds me of Rodgers in a lot of ways. And with all those weapons on offense, they're going to be a very scary team. So that's why I actually had so much praise for them earlier when I said they could be one of the Chiefs' biggest threats to three-peating, because I think the Packers team is that talented offensively. If Love can just take another step, I think they can really compete for Super Bowl. Last year they were one game away from an NFC title game against Detroit. They just couldn't finish versus San Fran.
Oh, well, all right. I like the idea of Jordan Love on your list, but I think personally you're underrating Jordan Love. But
Okay.
anyway, Paul, I want to hear yours next because my number 10 is going to break your brains.
Okay. I'm not disagreeing with Ben. It's Jordan Love.
Oh, I like
when
it.
he said Jordan Love, I was like, we agree on something.
We
It's
agree
not
on a
often
lot of
that
things, Paul, actually.
we agree on most things, but sometimes when it comes to quarterbacks, we don't.
Yeah.
And everything that you said about Jordan Love, I said exactly last season. I've been on the Jordan Love Green Bay hype train since last season when you guys weren't even joining me. You guys came on
was not.
mid-season.
It took me until the regular season to get on board, but I'm a big believer in J Love right now.
Yeah, that they went from Favre to Rodgers to Love. They just have great quarterback success in Green Bay. They have a great talent around Jordan Love. Their offensive line is always going to be top in the NFL.
Yeah, and they got 2 rings
Jordan
to show
Love
for it.
is top 10 quarterback.
No, I actually think they have
even though
4 rings technically, or 3. I think they have 4 though.
Green Bay.
Yeah, in their history.
Yeah, in the time that they had Favre and then Rodgers.
Yeah, I know that.
In that
but
whole
still,
time.
I would still take 1 right now.
Yeah, I'll take 1. Yeah,
I would take 1. Give me 1 with Josh Allen, and that's fine.
Well, yeah, I think.
Let's hear who yours is,
since
you wanted to break our brains.
All right, so I think it's time to break your brains because I definitely don't think the quarterback that I'm about to list is going to be on either of your rankings at all.
Okay.
And I feel like
is there some homerism here?
This is not homerism. If it was Homer, oh, you know what? Actually, we have homerism later in the show. Anyway, listen. So I feel like just as a collective, we're underestimating this particular
just shoot out the
quarterback.
name.
I think I kind of have a good guess. If I can just guess.
I'm sure you probably do already have a good guess.
Is it the player who won the division in his first season last year, possibly, or no? with a certain team?
No. As a matter of
No?
fact, that particular player I think is actually highly overrated. I don't even have him in my top 10 list at all.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that guy is very overrated. That team is
So then
very
who's 10?
overrated. The number 10 quarterback on my list is none other than Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa.
That's homerism.
Ooh, okay. Yeah,
And
Florida biasism.
the only reason I actually have Tua at number 10 on my list is just because he has the flashes of talent where he can carry the Dolphins by himself. We saw it in 2022 against the Baltimore Ravens when he came back from 38 to like 19 and won on a 6 touchdown game. Uh, Unfortunately, I can't rank him any higher than 10 because he's not
I
good when
mean,
it comes
I'm
to.
a known Tua hater and
Yes, you
Dolphins
are.
hater, so I don't know if 18 is a little low for some people, but that's where I had Tua on my list, 18. Like I
Good
actually did the
Lord.
full ranking. I was just
Yeah,
looking to kind
that
of
is
Yeah.
curious.
low.
10 through
But
15 would probably be okay for Tua. I don't have him
oh,
in my top
absolutely.
10.
I mean, I can't put him any higher than 10.
I can't put him.
can't
He's
I
a
can't
he's
put
a
him
he's a Hill and
above.
Waddle merchant.
Right,
Yeah.
and I
That's where his
can't.
success is
I
coming
can't
from.
put him above quarterbacks who have actually won playoff games. So that's why he's not on my list. And
Mhm.
number 9, it might be almost as controversial as Connor.
Uh-oh.
And I think some people will agree with me, but there might be some pushback. But I don't care because last year, when he was healthy, he was, in my opinion, the MVP favorite until he got hurt. And I
Oh,
think
I
if
know
you,
where this is going.
yes, I have always been a big Kirk fan. I think Kirk Cousins, when he's healthy, is a
Oh.
very good quarterback. Actually, probably would have put him in the top 5 if he didn't have the Achilles injury and maybe he was still in Minnesota. But I'm very high on Captain Kirk, and I think with that offense, they can do big things this year. So Kirk Cousins is my number 9th ranked quarterback.
By big things this year, you mean lose to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers twice, right?
All right. I mean, make the NFC Championship and maybe have an epic duel with Jordan Love to go to the Super Bowl. Like that would be a crazy game.
Wait, you mean Kirk Cousins and the Falcons would do that?
They
Are
might
they,
lose, but
is it going to
that
be
would still be a crazy
it's
game.
so it's going to be 35-3 game with the Falcons on top in the third quarter, and the Falcons are going to lose in overtime, right?
That would be something.
That would be peak Atlanta. Peak
All right.
Atlanta
You said
sports.
30. Oh
All
my.
right, let's get to
Let
your
me
number
go to
9.
Yeah, let me go to 9. My 9, I think, could be semi controversial, but could also be good. Within the realm of people thinking. 9, I have CJ Stroud. I think
Okay.
after last season, even though it was his rookie season, I get it. It was his rookie season. Let's see what he does
He
in
did
his
play very
sophomore year.
well in his rookie year. Right.
I think
I
he
mean,
takes the next step in his sophomore year. I think they done enough around him where they built a good team around CJ Stroud, but he isn't going to be the quarterback that's going to benefit from it. He's going to make everyone around him better. And that's the thing with the quarterback. Are you benefiting from the help that you're getting, or are you making the players around you better? And I think that's what CJ Stroud and Jordan Love, after having one great season, separates themselves from some of these other young quarterbacks that are currently in the NFL.
Why are people overrating and overhyping CJ Stroud and the Texans right now? Like, he had one good year in his rookie year when nobody practically knew anything about him, knew his playing style or anything. And then they went out and got a receiver who was basically non existent in the final few weeks of the regular season and non existent in the playoffs. That Texans team is not going to be this barn burner that everybody thinks it's going to be. I promise.
so
CJ
who do you
Stroud
have at
can fall
9 if you have such a problem with Stroud?
off. Well, at number 9, hold on, wait, who was yours again, Ben?
Kirk Cousins.
Okay, Kirk Cousins. Okay, Kirk Cousins, CJ Stroud, and for number 9, I really hated to put him on this list, but I really couldn't think of any other quarterback. It's the tush push guy, Jalen Hurts at 9 for me. I think
Okay.
if you take away if you take away the tush push, Jalen Hurts still has talent, but
That's
I
valid. I had Hurts above 2 in my
I
rankings.
like I like Jalen Hurts. Like I really, really do. But the man benefits from that tush push so much.
I think I had Hurts
They just
as
know how to the
my
Eagles just know how to do
13th.
it.
I had Hurts as number 13 on my list.
You know what? That's
I mean, there's
valid.
a lot of competition. I mean, I'll say a guy I left out that I really wanted to put on this list, and honestly, he might sneak back on this list this year because he's got a ton of weapons now, is Kyler Murray. Like, that guy is electric with the football in his
Mhm.
hands, and now he's got Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, Trey Benson, James Conner. Like, the sky could be the limit for that offense with all those weapons.
Yeah,
They finally
for
has a
sure.
semi decent O line. So let's see what they could cook up. But let's go to number 8. And I thought it was a pretty fair spot for where you put Stroud, Paul. I actually had him at 8, which Connor probably is gonna hate, but I like CJ Stroud. I like his game a lot. I mean, if you look at the splits between indoor versus outdoor, it is a little alarming, but when he's on, he can dice you up. And just this wide receiver core he has this year is unreal. Something that Josh Allen really never had, maybe except in 2020 to an extent. But even in 2020, like, we had a rookie Gabe versus Nico Collins who put up 1,200 receiving yards. And
Yeah.
Nico Collins is what we're all hoping Keon Coleman can maybe turn into, maybe hopefully a little bit better, but still around that. I
Much
would
better.
love that for Keon Coleman, his 1,200 receiving yards, like 10 touchdowns. But they have that plus Tank Dell and Diggs. And in Josh's peak, the most he had was Diggs, Gabe Davis, and an older Emmanuel Sanders. So I think he can absolutely cook. And obviously, he's still going to have to make throws and the right decisions. But I think CJ Stroud can have a massive year. As annoying as he is starting to get on social media and some of his
Yeah.
takes, but I still respect the talent and think he's going to be good.
I
All
agree.
right. All right. Yeah, I
All
guess
right.
we'll roll with
So
that.
at number 8, I have Justin Herbert. You know, other
Wow.
than him not
That's
getting to
low.
the
Yeah.
other than him not having,
Usually we
you
agree,
know,
Paul.
playoff success, I think that's where I kind of drew the line with Justin Herbert. You know, a lot of people, when I was looking through different rankings before the show, they had him pretty high. You know, and he's great. He's talented. He can, you know, he could do all the things that you ask for in a quarterback. He just hasn't had the team or any time in the playoffs, really. Like, he got there, but he hasn't had that really good playoff success. So hopefully with Harbaugh a head coach, that changes. But for now, I think Justin Herbert sits at 8 entering the season.
Yeah, I
Justin
thought that was a
Herbert.
little low too, Connor.
Yeah, that's very, very low. Like I we'll get into Justin Herbert
What
on my
other
end later.
ways do you have to rack our brain right now with your selection here?
All right. So you know what is actually kind of funny? Let's recap. Ben, who was your 8 one more time? Say it again for the audience.
CJ.
CJ Stroud, all right, and then Ben's was Justin Herbert. You
I
know,
almost said Connor. Paul's was
yeah,
we're each
Paul's
screwing up names.
Paul-
Yeah, Paul's was Herbert. Ben was Stroud.
all right. Okay. So what I think actually is kind of funny about the segue is that my number 8 got his first playoff win off of Justin Herbert and his absolutely inadequate playing in the third and fourth quarter of that particular playoff game. Mr. Sunshine is my number 8 overall quarterback,
Ooh,
and Trevor Lawrence is going to be the guy that
as
wins the
much
AFC
as
South the next year.
I like Trevor Lawrence, I really do, and I think some of the hate he's getting is a little unjustified. As much as I
Very
wanted
unjustified.
to put him in there, I just couldn't. I think right now he's like number 16 for me. But there's a lot of good quarterbacks. I could send you my full list, and I think it will make some sense. But I like Trevor. I mean, I think he has a potential to maybe even be higher than that.
Yes, he does.
But I mean, if you look at some of the metrics and stats, I mean, I think it is a justifiable spot. I just have different quarterbacks above him for various reasons. But once he starts winning more, I'll certainly move him up myself. What are your thoughts on?
I'm more on
do you even have him in your top 10 as well, Paul?
No, I don't.
Okay, I knew you would.
I mean, we're kind of agreeing here, and
at least that thing.
The thing, the logic that you were speaking is true. We'll put it there. What's your 7?
Okay, so you did Love, Stroud, Herbert.
Yep.
I did Love, Cousins, Stroud, Purdy. Now this might be controversial to some, but
did you just say system? All I heard was system. Did you just say system?
Basically, I mean, look. As much as you can say system, whatever, look at all the other guys who ran the system and never came to anywhere close to the success of this guy. And
that is true.
He can make plays. He can move a little bit. He can make a lot of throws. He's a good processor. And I mean, I don't think you can put that Super Bowl on him. I think he really did everything he could. I mean, McCaffrey, your GOAT, had a fumble in the red zone. Bosa missed Mahomes at the end. I mean, the defense kind of similar to what Buffalo has done against the Chiefs, just imploded against Kansas City. But I mean, we know that when Allen's lost against Mahomes, it really hasn't always been his fault. And I think you can say the same for Purdy in this instance. And if he didn't tear his UCL, who knows? I mean, he's only lost one game in the playoffs that he started and finished in. And he's in the second year of his career. I mean, that's pretty insane to think about. Like, I think you should put some respect on that. Like, whether you like him or not, like he just wins games. So I think Purdy, honestly, if he wins a Super Bowl, you can even, talk about moving him up even higher. I mean, here's the thing. Everyone talks about system and, Burrow's carried by their weapon, or Purdy's carried by his weapons, but they'll put Burrow so much higher. But how much, as crazy as it sounds, how much better is Burrow really than Purdy? Like, what can Burrow do that much better than Brock Purdy? Like, just think about it. I know that sounds crazy, but
that does sound crazy. You are actually racking my brain, making me try to think of how on earth you're coming to this conclusion when Joe Burrow has been able to single-handedly carry the Cincinnati Bengals to a
right,
Super Bowl.
That their defense got him there because they only allowed more than 20 points one time in that playoff run. And how many points did San Francisco allow to Kansas City? Like, Cincinnati's defense played better than San Francisco's did in that AFC Championship game they beat them in. Like, that's the reason Burrow got to a Super Bowl. It wasn't because of Burrow. It's because of the defense. Like, look at the stats. I think they had 3 interceptions against Tannehill in a game where Burrow got sacked 9 times, and that's because of Burrow. They made the AFC Championship. Then in the AFC Championship game, with time running out in the first half, Andy Reid decides not to kick a field goal, and they get stopped at the 1-yard line, and they don't score points. Game goes to overtime. First play into overtime, Mahomes ironically throws an interception 13 seconds into overtime. Guess what he didn't do against the Bills or the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs in overtime? Throw a pick. He did it against the Bengals, but that's because of Burrow, right? Right?
I mean, you have some solid points. You have some solid points.
Team game.
It is.
Can't get away from that.
Let's see who your 7 is, Paul, because I'm interested. I mean, I might be alone on an island here with Purdy in the top 10.
My number 7 is not Brock Purdy. My number 7 is going to be Dak Prescott. And
ooh, that's even more spicy.
Yeah, for real. Dak choker.
I still would take Purdy over Prescott.
I don't like putting the Cowboys players on my list, but based off his last season, you could say, or his last couple of seasons, some could argue he should be in MVP talks. Could
Or
be,
top 5. I mean, you
maybe,
could say
maybe
that.
not, but you could say entering this season, he could be one of the most underrated quarterbacks entering 2024. It's hard for me to say as a certified Cowboys hater, but Dak Prescott continues to show that he can continue to show regular season success. Yes, he can't get over the hump in the playoffs and get past the wild card round just like the Yankees and Maple Leafs, but just consistently have good seasons in the NFL. I think that's something you ask for as a quarterback. He needs to get back to the NFC Championship game, because if not, I don't think he's in the top 10 entering 2025.
Oh,
So here's my thing, and this is a little interesting because you may not all know this, but once upon a time, obviously I've always been a Bills fan, but I actually kind of like the Cowboys too, which is weird because of the Super Bowl thing, but I wasn't
weird.
alive, so to me it didn't really matter. But I kind of like the Cowboys, so as someone who's really not a certified Cowboys hater, just the thing is with Dak, like Paul mentioned, he does it in the regular season, but I know playoff losses aren't always on the quarterback. It's just when the game matters, he gives it up. Think about that San Francisco game, twice in the red zone. They could have won that game, gone to the NFC Championship. Think about the Green Bay game. He basically threw that game away before it even started and before their team had a chance. And what about that other San Francisco game where the game was ending and he literally ran the clock out with time running out. Like he didn't think to spike it or whatever. Like, I don't
He
know,
forgot
just
the
in
rules
these
of
big
football.
moments, it just doesn't seem like he has what it takes to win these games. And you see Josh Allen doing everything he can to bring his team over the top, but at least putting his team in position and not I know he gets killed in the regular season, but he doesn't really turn it over at all in the playoffs. But Dak does. That's the problem. Like when the games matter, he doesn't like I get it's not always his fault, but I mean, even going back to his rookie year, yes, I get it. He was a rookie, but they had a chance. And funny enough, Micah Hyde really was the one who kind of, turned that game around. I don't know if you guys remember that play. I think it was actually a touchdown scored by Hyde, if I'm not mistaken, in that Cowboys Packers playoff game way back then in Dak's rookie season. But just back to my point, like I like Dak as a regular season quarterback, but I just can't put him in the top 10 just because like I think he's 2-5 in the playoffs. And yes, it's not all him, but there are times where it is. And let's hear who your 7th is, Connor.
All right. So my 7th place position here is going to probably wind up shocking all of you again, but that's why I'm here and that's why I'm part of this show. But number 7 overall for me is a guy by the name of Matthew Stafford in Los Angeles. I think that Matthew Stafford actually does still have quite a fair bit of talent up his sleeve. I mean, look at what the Rams have done in the past few years. I mean, they won the Super Bowl back in 2020. 2020 was it? Yeah, it was 2021, I believe. Like Matthew Stafford is an incredible quarterback who I think doesn't really get a lot of love so far, at least at this point in the league, in the year. So I feel like a lot of people just need to get off of the hate train for Matthew Stafford. Just give him the credit he deserves because he's definitely still a good quarterback in this league. Definitely worthy of a top 10 ranking for sure.
Wow. I kind of liked what you're thinking here, Connor, so much. I actually had him as my number 6 quarterback on my list. That's how much I think of Matt Stafford. Like that guy could still sling it. Yes, he got hurt the year before, but he almost took a rebuilding Rams team after winning a Super Bowl his first year there to the NFC divisional round, where who knows, anything you know, could happen. So yeah, I got Stafford at number 6.
Yeah. All right. I like it. I like it a lot. Paul, give us your number 6.
All right, number 6. I don't think this is controversial at all. I think this is fair to this quarterback. I'm going to go at number 6, Jared Goff. I think
Okay, wow.
6
Mr.
is
Goof.
pretty fair for Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions.
I mean, if
Jared
you
Goff.
actually look at stats, he has
Yeah.
the third most 300-yard passing games in the last 2
Mhm.
seasons behind Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. So, I mean, you can make a legit argument that he could even be a top 5 because he's been putting up some really impressive numbers when you look at it. And honestly, a big reason Detroit was even in that NFC Championship game was because of how good of a season he had last year.
Mhm. And when he has in the last 3 seasons with Detroit, he's just single-handedly improved himself. He had back-to-back 4,000-yard seasons. In two of his last 3 seasons, he had single-digit interception numbers. He had 12 last year, but 2 seasons prior to that, he had 8 interceptions in 21 and 7 interceptions in 22. So he's just single-handedly just carried the Detroit Lions to success. And now they're just building off that success. In 23, he had a 67.3 completion percentage. He threw for 4,500 yards last year, 30 interceptions. 30 touchdowns last season. Like, he was the reason why the Detroit Lions were 12-5 and went to the NFC Championship game. And quite frankly, they should have won that game. But again, drops follow team, and they end up losing.
It seems to happen every time. Right when you don't need it to happen, it seems like wide receivers develop a case of stone hands.
So I think also this is like the perfect cliffhanger too, because we're gonna do the top 5 next week just for time's sake. And I know Connor is gonna go out with a literal bang here for number 6. Or at least I'm counting on him to.
Okay. So if you were counting on me to do that, then I should have changed my ranking because I have a feeling this is going to be very, very cut and dry and
Okay.
a very standardized pick. Number 6 for me is Jordan Love.
Oh, so you had him even higher than me and Paul. Wow.
Yeah,
I like
I
it.
love his game.
Scorching hot. Okay.
I love his game,
wow,
man. He is incredible.
That's props
you
to
know
you on
what?
that take, Connor. I
You know
mean,
what? I want both of you to imagine one thing for me, all right? Imagine if
okay.
Devontae Adams never leaves Green Bay and he has Jordan Love as a starting quarterback. Could you imagine just how insane that Packers offense would
Oh
be?
my gosh. Yeah, maybe Green Bay should have traded Rodgers in a season earlier and just send him to Denver where he could do as much recreational drugs as he wants.
Exactly that. So you see exactly where I'm going with this. If Jordan Love had a real number one like Devontae Adams, oh man.
Well, let me tell you, there's a guy by the name of Don Wick, and he's going to be like John Wick. Dontavian Wicks. He's going to go off this year. Look at some of his advanced numbers. Watch his tape. This guy is a absolute route demon. And if you play fantasy football, dynasty, non-dynasty, whatever fantasy, and you need a sleeper and a good wide receiver, the 2 Packers wide receivers I'm targeting are Jaden Reed and Wicks, because you obviously know Watson's going to go down at some point, even though he has been working on getting his hamstrings right. But I'm excited for this. I really like this week. The week 1 slate this year is absolutely phenomenal because not only did we get a AFC Championship game rematch kickoff, right? Ravens Chiefs.
Yep.
The next night, we get to see Jordan Love versus the new look Eagles after all the moves they've made.
Jerseys.
Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting game. And then Monday night, we hopefully finally get to see Aaron Rodgers play for the Jets, if that ever happens, or Leonard Floyd has the possibility of doing the funniest thing ever.
Oh my God.
Oh my! If all Jets fans just need to
Imagine it's
hope
the
that
other
Aaron
one this
Rodgers
time.
not bring
Oh
out the
my
American
gosh.
flag and run it out the same thing as he did last year.
No,
just
this
a
time he'll
different
bring out the
routine.
Mexican flag because he's in he's New Mexico, and then the cartel will put a hit on him.
All right, that works, I guess. I mean, it had he has to last more than what? What was it? 4 seconds.
Plays, yeah. If he can make it 5
4 plays.
plays, then the
That's
Jets
a
are at
successful
least
season.
yes. It's an improvement from last year, but yeah. Spoiler alert too. Speaking of
Uh-oh.
Rodgers, as we go into my final 5 for next week, I did not have Aaron Rodgers in my top 5. I'll actually kind of list out. Let me do some honorable mentions just as we
do some
wrap up.
mentions.
Jared Goff, I really wanted to put him in myself, but I had him at 12. As hard as it was, I just think I don't know. I like Purdy, Stroud, and Cousins a little bit more, even though I think Goff has a case to be above him. Baker Mayfield at number 15, but I'm a big fan of Baker Mayfield. I actually would take him
me
over
too.
Trevor Lawrence right now. As spicy as
What?
that may sound,
What?
kill me, but no, actually don't. But fight me on that.
All right, I'm gonna punch you
There
through
we
the
go.
screen.
Punch
Fight's
me on the
better.
screen, whatever you want.
The
But
screen.
Baker Mayfield is him.
Yes, he is. I will agree with that, but not more of him than Trevor Lawrence is.
Do they play this year? I don't know. They played last year, and Baker made him his you know what, right? That was like 30-0 Tampa, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember when they last played because I definitely don't think it was last year.
Let me see. I think they crushed them last year. I think it was like a huge loss. 30-12.
Okay, yeah, they did play. I didn't remember when it was, but yeah, apparently they
you
did.
probably have amnesia just because of how badly Baker beat Trevor.
No, I have amnesia for another reason in that week of football, and you know why. But anyway, we need to wrap.
Florida bias list of yours.
Right. All right. Well, that should conclude tonight's edition of another spicy episode. Next week, it should get more interesting when we reveal our top 5s. But I think, 10 through 6 was interesting enough. Like, I don't think anyone had the same 5. And multiple of us had, guys that weren't on any of our lists. Like, I don't think any of you had Cousins or Purdy. Connor had Tua and Hurts, as well as Lawrence. Paul had Goff. So, I mean, definitely some interesting names. And we'll see how the final 5 look. But that should wrap up tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure to subscribe and follow all of our pages on the interwebs. And go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.